Hey guys, and welcome back to the India Girl podcast. Okay, so it's a Sunday and I'm sitting here in my pajamas, and that is why this is an audio only episode because nobody needs to see that right now, right? Um, okay, so I've only just released a podcast episode 2 days ago, and that was the one for January. And you know, if you're a regular listener, that I release an episode every month, but I just felt called to release this episode today. And this is the whole reason that I started this podcast is because I just wanted to share information. I just felt called to do it, um, which is why I'm doing it once a month. And, you know, I've been on other people's podcasts and it's been really lovely professional setups and studios and lighting and everything. Mine is none of that. I'm just in my little study at home in my gym jams this morning, just recording and sharing with you. So, good morning. So, it's a new year. And I was thinking that most of us want to make some sort of changes or improvements in our lives, right? So I think this episode might be something that may be of interest to you. Because today I want to explore something that touches all of us in relationships, whether we realize it or not. Um, and that's attachment styles. Specifically, today, we're going to focus on avoidant attachment, what it is, how it develops, most importantly, the hope for change. So, as well as being a trauma trained therapist, I'm an attachment therapist also. And out of all of the learnings that and courses, etc., that I've done over time, which have all been really helpful, when I did my attachment diploma years ago, I felt that that was the one standalone course that totally transformed my relationships. Now, at my core, I'm going to be really transparent and have some disclosure here that at my core, I'm an avoidant dismissive in my attachment style. And now, admittedly, and I'm not saying this work is easy, after many years of work, I sit in secure attachment. However, having said that, we never lose our core attachment. And when stuff gets triggered, we can revert to our core attachment. But with awareness, we can come back to secure attachment quicker and quicker. Okay, but I want to make this podcast really straightforward, so I'm not going to get into it too deeply with this one. And I'll follow it up with doing similar podcasts on the other three main attachment styles. There are four main attachment styles. There is secure, which I refer to as the gold standard. That's not what it's referred to in the industry. I just call it the gold standard. Then there's avoidant, which has other variations, but we're just going to stick with broad avoidant. And then there's ambivalent, which you'll probably know more as anxious. That's how you'll see it on social media, I guess, more. And then there's disorganized. Okay. What exactly is avoidant attachment? Now, at its core, avoidant attachment is a style that says, this is a little narrative that runs, I need to rely on myself, or closeness feels risky, right? Unlike someone with secure attachment who feels safe leaning on others and being leaned on, someone with avoidant attachment often withdraws or distances themselves emotionally. And this isn't because they don't care, it's a survival thing, it's a survival strategy that often forms in early life, in our formative years. So kind of like how can I explain it best? Think of it like a child. When a child grows up with caregivers who are emotionally distant, inconsistent, or dismissive, the child can learn that expressing its needs or emotions may not bring comfort. And I don't say this with judgment, just as fact, because the parents are usually doing the best that they can, or they're doing what they know. And yes, attachment styles can be generational. I always say we do what we know, and when we know better or differently, we do better, or at least differently. And in some cases, caregivers may have been critical or uncomfortable with vulnerability themselves. So the child's nervous system says, if I want to be safe, I have to manage on my own. And over time, this strategy becomes automatic, shaping how they relate to others as adults. I'll share a little tidbit from my own story because I am an avoidant dismissive at my core, even though I do sit in secure attachment now. Um, so, in my own childhood, and this is about feelings that I thought it was best not to show, right? So I can visualize this almost, this memory. It's on the front, in the front garden, on the footpath, fell down, 5-year old that I was, really scuffed my knees to the point it was like all scratched up and bleeding. My dad saw me, picked me up, looked at my knee, brushed it off, um, and there was, and he said to me, "I'm Punjabi, I'm Indian." He said, "Shabash Shira," as in like, "Well done," like because I didn't cry, I was fighting back tears. When you see children and they're fighting back tears, and you just have to say the right thing or the wrong thing, and then they either hold the tears back or they burst out crying. Well, when he said "Shabash Shira," I was like, "Well done, my little tiger lion." Um, my little child brain was kind of like took that as he was rewarding my not crying, right? So despite the pain, I didn't cry. And I just carried on like it wasn't hurting. So I learned that when I don't cry, when I'm in pain, Daddy loves me. I'm loved. So my subconscious narrative became that feelings and emotions are a weakness, and that I'm not weak. So despite my pain, I don't cry. Very stoic, right? And now that I say that word stoic, I wonder if stoics do actually generally have an avoidant attachment style. But anyway, I didn't cry as such until I was in my 40s, no matter what happened, because subconsciously I had learned to view emotional people as weak, feelings as and vulnerability as a weakness. But anyway, I'm digressing, and that's a different story. So how does avoidant attachment show up in adults? So in adult life, avoidant attachment can show up in a variety of ways, and some of the common patterns might include that you value independence over intimacy. It can be avoiding sharing feelings or being vulnerable. Might be distancing emotionally during conflict, like just withdrawing. It might be minimizing or ignoring your own needs. Might be struggling to ask for support even when you desperately need it, and just appearing aloof or like a perfectionist or like too busy to connect kind of thing. So even when someone with avoidant attachment desires closeness, their nervous system can feel really unsafe with intimacy. So these behaviors appear automatically, not because they want to push others away, but because their system has learned that closeness can feel risky. So I want to be really clear here. um, I really advocate understanding without judgment. An avoidant attachment is not a flaw, it's not a character defect, it's a learned survival strategy. It's the best way that your nervous system knew how to protect itself in an environment that didn't always feel safe emotionally. And it's worth saying again that this is normal. It makes sense, but it can change. So some people think, oh, I've always been an avoidant. Am I stuck this way forever then? Absolutely not. Attachment styles are patterns, they're not life sentences. So, with awareness, with practice, and safe relationships, avoidant attachment can shift towards secure attachment. Trust me, I'm a living example of this. So, and again, I'm not saying the work is like a quick fix or it's easy, but it's so possible and so gratifying. So, let's imagine a few scenarios, right? Real life scenarios where, for example, young child tries to share their worries with a parent and the parent dismisses or criticizes them, or a teenager shares excitement about something and their caregiver like barely notices. So each one of these moments teaches the nervous system, hey, my feelings aren't safe to show. So now let's fast forward to adulthood and similar patterns repeat. And that's why it's easy to fall into avoidant behaviors without even realizing it. Even in romantic relationships, avoidant attachment shows up in really subtle ways. Maybe you find yourself pulling away when things get too close emotionally, or maybe you struggle to ask your partner for support. Now, this isn't about being selfish or uncaring. It's about self protection that's been internalized since childhood. It's an old pattern. So, to work on your avoidant attachment, like what does it take? Well, firstly, it requires noticing these automatic behaviors, which is what we're trying to do here partly, and noticing them without judgment, right? Secondly, it involves practicing small acts of vulnerability in safe spaces, whether that be with friends, partners, or with your therapist. And thirdly, it's about learning that closeness is not dangerous and that vulnerability is actually a strength. Do you know a Brené Brown quote that I absolutely have come to adore over the years, especially since my attachment diploma is vulnerability is not a weakness. She says vulnerability is courage in action. And I love that. So I want to be honest. This work is not easy. And I say this from experience. At my core, I am an avoidant dismissive. And I still notice traces of it sometimes. But through years of work, therapy, and conscious practice, I now primarily operate from a secure attachment. And guys, it's beautiful. I'm a living example that it's possible and it's so worth it. So if you recognize avoidant patterns in yourself, remember, and this is really important, I really want you to know this, you're not broken, there's nothing wrong with you. You learn these patterns to protect yourself. And now, with patience, compassion, and practice, you can reshape your attachment style. You can experience relationships with intimacy, trust, and emotional safety. And that is a truly beautiful thing. Okay. Thank you for joining me today on the India Gill podcast. Because, this is a place to have, as I always say, these conversations that we were never taught to have, but that we deeply need to have, right? Now, in our next episode, I'm going to try and cover all four attachment styles. And in the next one, I'll explore the ambivalent attachment. Okay, again, us therapists know it as ambivalent, but you might know it in the way that it's more often referred to on social media, on the internet, as anxious attachment. And that's just another style, but it has its own unique story. So until then, go gently with yourselves, notice your patterns, and remember, change is so possible. And you are so capable of secure connection. Okay, drop a note in the comments to let me know if this episode landed for you. And please share it with someone who you think might benefit from it. You can stay connected with me outside of the podcast on Instagram or Facebook at India Gill, or my website, which is, again, my name, indiagill.com. So until the next time, lead with love, approach everyone and everything with curiosity. And this includes yourself. Don't forget yourself, right? So approach everyone and everything with curiosity, not with judgment, but with a view to understand. Okay. Until the next time.